August may bring fresh notebooks and sharpened pencils, but for many women, especially teachers, moms, and caregivers, it also ushers in a storm of stress, burnout, and emotional overload. With over 30 years in movement and yoga therapeutics, Rachel Lundberg has helped countless women reclaim calm, rebuild their energy, and reconnect with their bodies, especially when life feels relentless. Tonight, we explore how movement heals what words can't, why yoga is more than a workout, and the tools that actually work when your schedule feels impossible. Welcome to the show, Rachel. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Mhm. So, Rachel, why is August in particular such a stressful month for women?
Well, I think specifically in the West, we tend to start school and have started school since our childhood in late August or early September. And so it's built into our nervous system that there's going to be a new beginning, um, you know, a new class, a new, excuse me, excuse me, a new teacher, new friends. And so there's kind of an angst that is built into our nervous system from decades of being conditioned to get ready for a brand new year. And it doesn't leave once we are. Once we're adults, whether or not you have children, I find across the board that people, specifically in the West, when we start school at that time of year, there's an inner anxiousness in preparation for September, end of August, September, and when those things are going to begin. And so it's kind of happening outside of our conscious awareness. This buildup of anxiety and uh, overwhelm and just, yeah, that sense of uncertainty. So whether or not you have kids that are in school or you're going back to school, it still seems to affect people across the board.
Absolutely. And are there subtle signs of burnout we often miss during the season?
I do believe that when some of the more subtle signs of burnout are, the repetitive inner dialogue that somehow you're not doing enough. Um, It tends to be that when our lives are really busy, our schedules are really full, that and we're being pulled in multiple directions, that the inner dialogue starts to say, I'm not enough. And then with that comes a sense of judgment. And then the body starts to react. And because the body starts to feel like it can't handle more, we can start to experience things like difficulty sleeping, difficulty turning the brain off, maybe changes in our appetite, ways that we're interacting with others. Maybe we're a little more short tempered or impatient. Um, and these, we might be wondering, well, what's going on? Like, why am I reacting this way? What is my body doing? Is my body failing me? But the truth is the body is a very, very real time teacher of what is needed now. And if your body is speaking to you and saying things like, I can't sleep, or it's hard for me to eat, or, a lack of motivation, then those are all signs that you're in some form of burnout. And burnout is not a bad thing. It's just that it can be disruptive for us to fully burn out because it will affect our schedules and our days and our interactions. And ultimately, it's just a way for the body to reset itself. However, most of us, if we can watch for those early signs of burnout, we can ultimately avoid having to take weeks or months off or getting sick.
It's surprising how many of those signs we have normalized as just life.
So true. It's so true. And, you'll talk with people and you'll say, how are you? And they'll say, oh, I'm just so busy. Um, and And so it's this collective busyness, this collective angst, in preparation for, I think, Personally, I think that August, September are even bigger events for us than the new year. We celebrate the new year on January 1st here, but this new year of starting a school year, I feel like has a lot more charge to it, more than people realize. And they wonder why they run into the holiday months just completely depleted. And it's because we didn't really prepare ourselves for this huge shift energetically of going back to school, or just the conditioned part of our nervous system that's expecting a bunch of change to happen around this time of year. So I would try to normalize it because I know that as a mother, I have 3 children. They're all grown now. And I would often, before I was aware of it, I would often just feel like this growing angst um, this time of year, and it would just last for months. And it wasn't just the angst of getting my children ready for school. It was of the fact that I had lived an entire life of this time of year being a big deal, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And you talk about the connection between hormones, trauma, and emotional labor. How do these combine to drive burnout?
Well, what we don't totally always recognize, and I'm not a medical professional or a psychologist, but because of my own experiences, um, I actually suffered with a chronic illness for over a decade, and while I was a young mom, and it didn't occur to me, I wasn't made aware of the fact that it was a nervous system driven chronic illness that that was making me so sick. And the reason that I ever even arrived in that space is because of the way that my body was reacting to. It could be mini traumas or larger traumas that I'd experienced in childhood and throughout my life and into adulthood that I'd never actually known how to address or nurture. And our bodies are so incredibly adaptable and our brains are so incredibly adaptable that once we've patterned ourselves into a certain way of living, our brain is going to release the chemicals into the body that support that way of living. So if you're always living in a high stress mentality, um, a go, 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 go sense of being, your brain is going to release those chemicals into the body that we need to keep going, that this is important to keep going. We can't slow down. It's not safe to take time. And then what happens is we kind of end up living in a depletion of what we call the feel good chemicals: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. And mainly living on the high stress chemicals of cortisol. Um, and it can, and ultimately, those are meant to be short term bursts of chemical doses. And so when we're living in those stressful states all the time, we deplete our bodies, we deplete our reserves, and that it will immediately and long term affect um, the biochemistry, but also in the sense of our hormones. And as a woman, we're going through a 30-day cycle of hormones every month when we're in our menstruation years, and then that starts to shift in perimenopause, and of course, then those hormones completely shift in menopause. And so it's wise of us to become aware of how we are living our lives, not just in the physical sense, but also in the mental and emotional sense, because all of those parts of us interact in very important ways to create a reality of either thriving or surviving. And when we're in the reality of surviving, it is ultimately going to affect all systems of the body, hormones and otherwise.
100%. And how can women begin to untangle and address all three without feeling overwhelmed?
I love this question because oftentimes when we recognize that things aren't, excuse me, I have something in my throat this morning. Oftentimes when we recognize that our life isn't going the way that we want, we put more pressure on ourselves to do more stuff. So I've got to try a new therapy or read a new book or, fix myself. My invitation, I like to use one method in particular that has across the board been incredibly powerful. And I've learned this in various ways from various teachers. So I'll just share my own version of it. But it's often called the ABC. And A stands for just becoming aware to what you are feeling right now. And notice. So awareness, noticing that I am maybe having a hard time breathing right now, or I feel like my body's running fast, even though I'm not actually running, um, or I can't seem to turn my mind off. So the step number one is just to become aware of what's happening in this right now moment without trying to fix it or make it wrong. And once you don't have to spend a lot of time in that awareness, it can just be a very quick, easy, simple awareness. And then the B stands for breathing. So I like to put my hands on my chest. I like to feel right over the center of the chest. This is the heart space, energetic heart space, physical heart space, and take 3 slow, steady breaths. They don't need to be deep breaths. There doesn't have to be anything fancy, just slow and steady. And the magic that happens between A and B is that when you become aware and then you choose to breathe, you create this little pocket, this little space of pause that immediately, either in small ways or big ways, slows the world down and allows you to have what I feel is the most magical part of being is the pause. And in that space of pause, then we can move into C, which is choice. Oftentimes, what drives us to burnout, overwhelm, behaviors that we don't love, um, feelings of insecurity and judgment is because we are moving so fast, trying to avoid feeling what's here right now, that we never take the time to make a conscious choice about how we'll enter the next moment of our life. So let's say I'm in my kitchen and I'm noticing that I'm feeling incredibly stressed. So I take a second and I'm like, wow, I feel a lot of stress running through my body. It feels like I gave the example earlier, like my body's running really fast, even though I'm not actually moving fast. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take 3 slow, steady breaths. I really promote the hands-on body. Naturally, when you place your hands on your own body, you do assist your body in releasing oxytocin, which is a bonding chemical, a soothing chemical. And it starts to build a relationship between your own body and your inner essence and allows you to feel comforted. So I'd place my hands on my heart, take 3 slow, steady breaths. And then in that moment, I've created, again, like I said earlier, enough space to choose or to be creative or to take some sort of inspired action. And it gives my deeper wisdom time and space to come through so that I'm not running on the high level stress chemicals. So the A is becoming aware, the B is to breathe, and then the C is to choose. And the choice can be, how can I show up more for myself right now? Or what is here for me? Or life is working out for me. How can I soften into this feeling or fill in the blank. The choice might be I like a mantra that I use a lot that says, I am calm, confident, and at ease. So I'm making a choice to accompany the discomfort with the part of me that is calm, confident, and at ease until that discomfort can relax a little bit and subside. So A, B, C is a really powerful one. It's easy to remember. You can put it on a little sticky note, put it in your car, in your purse, on your refrigerator. Nobody else has to know what it means. And that's just a reminder: aware, breathe, choose. Another thing that we can do is physically slow down our movement. So if you feel like, and you are moving quickly, and you feel like everything's happening really, really, really fast, whether it is or not, it is time to physically slow down your movement. So one of the patterns I used to have is I would be home with just doing home types of things, but I would be moving so fast from room, to place, up, down. And I started to notice that I was moving quickly, but for what reason? And so I gave myself the invitation and challenge to, every time I noticed I was moving really quickly and it wasn't necessary, then I would make myself slow down and take my steps slower, and even take one hand onto the opposite arm and soothe by rubbing the fingers up and down the arm. That's an incredibly powerful way to soothe your nervous system. And I would say inside of my head, just slow, slow, slow. It's okay to go slower. And so that we start to train our body that it's okay to go slower. And it starts to teach the mind it's okay to go slower. We're still going to get there. This isn't necessary. It's creating, unnecessary chemical dumps in the body of stress chemicals. Not to stress people out about the stress chemicals. So, but just actively choose something different. Actively choose to slow down, slowing your breath, slowing your movement, slowing your words. Choose something that you can slow down and you will have a different experience. It will start to shift the chemical reactions in your body.
Yeah, and that layered approach makes the challenge feel more solvable.
Absolutely. And that's what we need. We need small steps, because even the small ones can feel really challenging in the moment, but it's repetition over time that really makes the shift. So I teach a lot about nervous system regulation in my Embody programs, and just in general when I'm working with people, either one-on-one. And yes, I am a yoga teacher. And in addition to that, because of my lived experience with nervous system dysregulation, I'm happy to say that I'm honored and get to assist people in their journeys toward nervous system regulation. But um, what I was going to say with that is that when we create simplicity, and something that's attainable, and we repeat it over time, our brain has no choice but to change. So our brain changes based on three factors. It changes on what we focus on. It changes on the associations we make with that focus, and it changes with repetition. And there's an acronym for it, and the acronym is FAR, F-A-R, focus, association, and repetition. So if we choose to focus on a practice like the ABCs, and we start to associate, our body and nervous system starts to associate feel-good chemicals with that experience, and we repeat it over and over and over again, eventually that becomes our more of our default experience. Instead of once in a while we might feel calm, we start to live in a calmer state. We have trained our brain, our nervous system, to naturally shift into more relaxed states of being. And I really find comfort in this, and I know from my own lived experience that the brain will shift and change when we implement focus, associations, and repetition. And that is how our brain changes. And then ultimately, how we can shift and change our lives and feel better in our bodies and create something different. We're no longer a victim. We become an active creator of what our experiences are and how we interact with them.
That's amazing. And burnout doesn't have to be the backdrop of your life. As Rachel reminds us, true calm isn't found in squeezing more into our days. It's in creating moments where our body, mind, and heart are aligned. Maybe this August, instead of pushing harder, it's time to breathe deeper.